Welcome to Weird Games and Weirder People, a podcast about role playing games and the weird, wonderful people behind them.
Hello, wonderful weirdos. My name is Diogo Nogueira, and today's guest we have the amazing and award-winning Cassi Mothwin. She's the creator of Tangled Blessing, the sticker game, Covered by the Garden, and so many more games. She makes really interesting and creative games. And before I talk more about this, I'd like to remind you to please click the subscribe button wherever you listen to your podcast. Leave us a review. It really helps spreading the word about the show. And if you have any coins left for your left adventure, support the show. Link on the show notes for how you can pay us a coffee or buy one of my games. And talking more about Cassi, we talk a lot about how she likes to focus really on the narrative opportunities of the games, and it's really doesn't explore too much of the math, and how she likes to experiment with the games, explore and express herself. We talked about Fallout, the game, the series that's on Prime right now. We talked about her future plans for games she's planning to create on 2025, and Kickstarter she's gonna have for expanded edition of Tangled Blessings later in the year. We talk about weird games like Hell Whalers, which is also in Kickstarter right now. We talk about her experience with writing, how that helps her explore this very interesting part of her work in her games. We talk about gratitude, we talk about the habit of journaling, her many influences. It was a really great episode, very insightful. She's very creative, and I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. So let's get weird with Cassi Mothwin. Hey Cassi, welcome to Weird Games and Weirder People. I'm so happy to have you here and talk about the amazing stuff that you've been doing. So how are you, Cassi? How have you been?
I'm really great. I just made a big life change. So today I'm taking the next 2 weeks off from my day job
That's awesome.
completely. So I today's the first day of the no day job for a little bit. So I'm in a really good mood as I get to pretty much work on tabletop RPG stuff the next 2 weeks before I then go to a new day job that isn't in tabletop RPGs. But I'm really excited to just dig in and crank some more stuff out.
Yeah, I love this. I do that all the time too. Like I take a vacation from the day job to
Yep.
work on my other job, and this is like, should I be? I don't think this is healthy, but I mean, we love doing what we do, right? But I mean, yeah, what
Yeah.
is that you do on your day job?
Well, I used to be a marketer, so I used to be in copywriting, and I would write like Facebook ads or Google ads for businesses in all types of industries, mostly business to business. So one business would be selling agricultural software to
Mm-hmm.
ag retailers. So nothing near tabletop RPGs, but now
Well,
I'm moving
yeah.
into an analyst and logistics position. So a complete career change. But I'm really
Mm-hmm.
interested. There will be a lot of training involved. So I'm really interested to see how that influences how I approach tabletop RPG
Oh
design. I
yeah.
just imagine living and breathing logistics daily is going to affect how I approach design. But I don't know yet. We'll see.
Yeah. Do you have any imagination or what would be affected? Because my first idea would be, well, you probably learn a lot from the logistic parts, and maybe you wanna, if you wanna like open a publisher or distributor or a store, because a lot of designers do that part too. That's probably very useful knowledge. In the same way, copyright, even though it's as you said for agricultural products or whatever, everything you learn from that, you're obviously using everything you learn from marketing with your games too, right?
Right, yeah. I think I just think it'll unlock a different way that I use my brain because I don't really
Mm-hmm.
do a lot of I don't wanna throw everything into the math pile, but just for the sake of simplicity for the
Mm-hmm.
discussion, I don't really approach things from a math perspective because I don't have a lot of training in it and I don't have a lot of experience
Mm-hmm.
with looking at data and analyzing data. It's always been an interest of mine though, so I think a lot of my games that exist right now are more narrative focused. So I don't really play
Mm-hmm.
with odds. I'm not really concerned with odds or
I see,
dice
yeah.
and rolling those and seeing how that affects outcomes. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
interested to see if once I get more of a handle on just data in
Systemic
general.
approach, right? Like this,
Exactly. Yeah.
the way systems like feed each other and have this kind of cyclical movement, right? And it's something I've been really fascinated by, how we can create games that feeds itself and generates its own emergent things, the way the math and the system kind of works everything together. And yeah, that's a great way to view the day job and seeing what we can learn from it and what we can apply to our work. And that's a perfect view, and it's a great view by a designer, and especially a game designer. So congratulations for having
Thanks.
this perspective. Have you ever been this way with your day job, like trying to see the good stuff in it? Because I'm learning to do that now, but for a long while I just hated my day job so
Yeah.
much.
I mean, I worked my day job before I got into games.
Mhm.
So there was always that this is a job, I do this, and then I go home and actually do the fun stuff. I mean, I still sort of feel that way a little bit. You can never escape that piece, but it is fun if we engage in a new, with my last position, if I engage
Mhm.
with a new marketing software, or I learned something new
Yeah.
about marketing and I was able to apply that to my own games for marketing my own games. So for example, like emailing on a Tuesday before 9 a.m. Central Time is usually the best time for emails. And just like that's
Mm.
not something I think I would ever know unless I actively sought it out as a creator. But living and breathing marketing every day, I get little nuances like this. Like, sure, email marketing is good, but here's some of the specifics and tactics that you can use when it comes to writing effective headlines, or
Yeah.
just building an email journey so folks are actually interested in what you're saying and actually make a purchase or stay in tune with your
Mhm.
projects. So it took some rewiring of my brain a little bit to come to that space and essentially say, okay, well, I have to work this job, but what can I take from this and apply elsewhere that will be beneficial and useful? And I think once I made that switch, I just became a positive person, more positive person
Oh
overall,
yeah.
to be
Oh
honest.
yeah. Because you can apply that in everything, right? Even things outside of work. Like,
Yeah,
uh, it's terrible to say this, like, but a lot of the bad stuff, like that happens at the time it happens, we think it's terrible, but it often leads us to a better place in the
100%.
future, and it's very hard at the time it's happening. We can't see it at all. But after we get some experience, like I'm getting older, I'm 40 years old, uh, and everybody, oh, getting older is terrible. But I've lived so much, I've learned it, I've lived through this so much that yeah, it's terrible now. But I've been through terrible stuff before, and this will pass, and I'll get through the other side. And having this wisdom and being able to apply this and seeing that with your work, with everything else, it's amazing. It reminds me a phrase that I love. It's like, from one thing, learn 1,000 things. So in your day job, in everything that you do that isn't gaming, there's probably something there that you can learn and maybe see how you can apply in your work, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And just to piggyback off that a little bit, because I always wrestle with getting older, I think that a big piece of it is when you make mistakes and then you find out, hey, this wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. It, like, even if it is bad, I mean, usually years later, you've moved on.
Oh yeah,
And then
nobody will remember this. Yeah.
yeah, you can do stuff again, you can try again, and now you know, okay, well, failure, you know exactly how bad failure can get or the realm
Yeah.
failure can be in, and you're more confident, right? Or you can
Oh
put
yeah.
blockers in place to help ensure that failure doesn't happen. So,
Yeah.
yeah, just I don't know why. I just really wanted to get that piece out. I guess it was more of a coaching piece for me.
Yeah, and we can all learn from playing. If we're always succeeding, we're learning nothing new. So yeah, fail away and learn and be
Yes.
better. And that thing you said, like, we worry so much about some things, but like in 5 years, no one will remember this. So
Mhm.
relax, and keep going, get up, and let's go. Cassie, for the wonderful weirdos out there that maybe don't know you yet, don't know your amazing work, and I always like to ask it from the people who come here to say with their own words who they are, instead of with reading here a bio or something. So who is Cassi Mothwin? What is that you do? And if you can you share just a small weird detail about yourself, maybe a habit or the way you do coffee or the way you choose your clothes or your glasses or anything like this?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Cassi Mothwin. I am a tabletop RPG designer. Even though I've won a few awards, I still struggle to accept that as a title, but I'm getting better at it. I
Mm-hmm.
started releasing games. Well, I released my first project in 2021, which was a encounter situation for 5e, and then I started releasing my own independent projects. In 2022 and in 2023 and now in 2024. I've slowed down quite a bit in 2024, but my 2022 and 2023 projects all deal a little bit with some horror, deal a little bit with sitting with your emotions and exploring your character's emotions. I am very fascinated with solo role playing games, so that's where a lot of my work tends to be. Or duet GM-less games is also what I really enjoy because can't always get a bunch of friends over, but my partner and I both really love playing role playing games. So I hate to say trying to get into that market, but I am trying to build out a library in that space. It's slow going. As I said, I have a full time job, but yeah, I've got a lot of ideas on the table for doing that. And then right now, my little habit is I'm obsessed with Fallout New Vegas right now.
Mm.
I started playing after I watched the amazing Fallout show that was on Prime. Didn't think it was going to be great. It was good. And then I decided to reinstall Fallout New Vegas. I've got 600 mods and we're having a really good time.
That's amazing. I'm hearing a lot of people say, "Yeah, I gotta watch Fallout," and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm watching." There's so much things to watch, right? I'm watching that For All Mankind on Apple TV. It's like this,
Okay.
yeah, sci-fi.
It looks good. I don't have Apple
Yeah,
TV, and the only reason I have Prime is because I mooch off my parents. Um,
yeah,
and I think the only reason I watched it was because all episodes were out and I had a weekend free. Otherwise,
yeah,
it just wouldn't have happened.
yeah.
I'm so
It got released, I think, a couple of months or weeks ago, right? So it's just one season,
Yep.
and yeah,
It's
people
already been
are
renewed for
raving
season 2
about it.
though.
Yeah,
I
that's
really
great.
enjoyed it. I did not
Yeah.
think it was gonna be good. I didn't watch any trailers. I didn't read, like, any of the stuff that came out ahead of time, and
I confess I don't know the games, but it looks cool. I don't know. It looks funny too, right? It has a bit of humor, and I love humor,
Mhm.
so yeah.
It has a lot of gore too, which I've played the games and I know they're gory, but for some reason there's something different when it's so gory on screen versus a video game. I didn't realize I had that distinction within me, but I don't really like it if it's on
Mm.
the TV in a
It's
movie or
actors too. It's more real, right? Because
yeah,
if
I
it's a
think that's
video
what it
game,
is.
it's
It's
like,
just
yeah, this is a toy here. This thing here died, but it's just pixels, But when it's people, it's
it's a
it's
lot.
different. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's one of the reasons some horror games use a lot of
Right.
cartoon as illustrations, right? Because it's yeah, you can kill a cartoon. Go ahead, it's a drawing. But
Like Bugs
when we
Bunny would be a horror.
oh yeah, oh yeah, it's terrifying. Yeah. You mentioned you begin in 2021 and 2022 23 makes a lot of stuff, and it kind of makes sense. You begin releasing your games during a pandemic, and a lot of people were isolated, so you're focused on solo games. And I don't think it has to do with what you said, like I want to get into that market. No, it's the games you enjoy playing, right? It's the
Right.
games you play with your partners, and I like to explore them a lot too, because it's the kind of games we can play anywhere, right? So we kind of make them for us. We kind of want to explore these themes. I love the sticker game you made. It's so creative, so out there, and so different. And there's a lot we can explore in solo and journaling games, because society, we as people use journaling for a lot of stuff. And I
Right.
always think about how can I turn this journaling habit into a game, and it's very interesting to see how you're exploring various ways to do that with your the stickers game, and now you made one of about traveling to a forest or garden, right? The covered by garden,
Right.
and
Yep.
yeah. Are you
Yeah.
working on any other solo game right now? Do you have is the crowdfunding for the expansion for Tangled Blessings still going on?
Yeah, so I have plans for more solo games. Those are I don't know, they're probably next year. I'm sort of slowed down this year a lot
Oh
as I
yeah, what?
transition into the new position.
Oh yeah.
So I was like, probably should refocus a little bit. But the crowdfunding for I have written some expansions for Tangled Blessings. I'm finishing up the third one right now. I hired 10 contributors for that. So I'm
Wow.
acting as editor for their contributions, and they're all so good. And I already have 2 existing expansions, and then in September 3rd, I'll be launching a crowdfunding campaign to get all the expansions bound and in a physical book, along with a couple
Oh
of
yeah.
unannounced add-ons. So I'm really excited to add to the Tangled Blessings universe, and I haven't explained it, so just a quick overview for listeners if they're
Oh
unfamiliar.
yeah, of course.
Yeah. Tangled Blessings is my one player or two player GM-less magical school horror game. You take on the role of basically a adult student at a college where bad things happen to you as you learn magic. First couple of years aren't too bad, but the more you study, the more advanced you get. The weirder and more horrifying things become. And it uses only a tarot deck, so no dice or anything else. Oh, and I feel like the tarot cards just really lean into the theme of the
Oh
aesthetic
yeah.
of everything.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and adding on to it, I'm just really excited to see how it diversifies the stories that people tell because they're already wildly different. So I'm excited to see how folks make them even more diverse because the expansions include a winter break section where you stay on campus over winter break and do some weird mysterious stuff, and then an ending expansion that adds 16 new endings. The original game comes with 3 that are pretty open
Mm.
ended, but one of the expansions, the 16, are pretty specific and they're very bad. You could die, you could murder someone, you could time travel. They're very cool and unique and
That's
different,
great.
and based
Yeah.
on how the cards you draw throughout the game. And then coming up, we have some more prompts that just add some more variety, and then, like I said, some unannounced add-ons. So really
Yeah, a lot of
robust.
stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
great stuff, and having this all in physical format, it's fantastic. I'm very much uh having things on my hand because PDFs,
Same.
I just forget them in the hard
Yes,
drive.
I was just
Yeah,
about to say that. If I don't have a physical copy, I
if I
just
don't
forget
see
I
the book, I don't see it. I don't know. It doesn't
It's the
exist.
ADHD. It's
Yeah.
it's really rough out here.
And about the tarot deck, do you think about maybe making its own deck for Tangled Blessings, or maybe for the settings you develop maybe different stuff for it,
I've
or
thought
you already
about
have one?
Oh, no.
Oh,
I've thought about it, but a tarot deck is 78 cards. So from
a
if
lot.
I'm an
Yeah.
artist, so I do a lot of the art for my own stuff. Not always, but like
Hmm.
Carved by the Garden, I did the cover art for that as well as Tangled Blessings. Um, so I would feel inclined to do my own art for the tarot deck, and I don't have time to do 78 illustrations. And then I did think about partnering with an artist, but I feel I mean, it would probably be at least $100 per card, right? So we're looking
Yeah,
at a
a lot of stuff. Yeah.
very expensive deck. So I think right now that's not on the table. If a
Hmm.
publisher were to approach me and wanted to absorb some of those costs, I'd be up for it. But I think as independent as I am,
Hmm.
it's not in the cards for me right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's something like this. But do you have these dreams about these products for your game? Like, oh, I like a tarot deck. I would love to make a tarot deck, or for me, like for Primal Quest, I would love to make specific D6 or these accessories. Do you take notes of these ideas of like, if I had money, this game would have this deck or this something? Do you think about this a lot, or are you very practical when you make the game? And like, oh, I'll just do this zine and this and that.
I try to stay pretty practical, but I mean, I do wish I could do a box set if it didn't affect
Yeah,
like VATs and import costs and all. Because a book is pretty easy to get through.
yeah. My dream
Um,
is a box set. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
it's a book. It's usually pretty easy to get it through most customs. There's no extra
Mm-hmm.
fees usually. You can do medium mail if you don't add stickers. So I do tend, because it's just me, I do tend to keep it realistic, because I know I've seen people who get put a bunch of stuff together and it just becomes a disaster to ship out.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I mean, if sky's the limit, I'd love to do so when you play the game, there are 5 houses that you could be sorted into, one for each point on a pentagram. And
Nice.
I think it would be really cool if I had patches. So if you, whatever house you're sorted into and you really
Yeah.
connect with, you can like put that patch to represent you.
Yeah.
We had candles made. I had 40 candles made with when I did my first crowdfunding campaign for Tangled Blessings. That are
Jerseys
like,
for the houses, maybe for
yeah,
the sport.
and
Yeah.
and I would love to like have those be mass produced and available for people as
Yeah.
they play. And then yeah, a tarot deck and even a quill, right? You want
Yeah, yeah. Wow. You comes with your own ink bottle,
Yes.
Yeah,
And
that would be amazing. Yeah.
its own stamp and its own little wax stick
Yeah,
so you can
wax. Yeah,
I don't
maybe
know why.
in the deluxe version one day, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the ultra deluxe.
uh, Cassie, one thing I like to ask too, because of the podcast, is the weird, and you're making pretty weird games, which is amazing. And here the weird is more like you have a very positive take on it, which is like weird than you wonderful. But I'd like to ask you and people who come here, how would you like to try to, how would you define the weird for you? And if you, do you seek that the weirdness in the games and the experience you have in your life, and how do you seek that?
That is such a great question. I have, for example, I have a very hard time explaining the sticker game to anyone, and I usually start with it's really weird. Um, Especially for people who are unfamiliar with journaling games or unfamiliar with role playing games in general, because I talked about it a lot last year. It won an award, and then I won another award that it won a couple of awards, and then I won
Mm-hmm.
another award that cited it as one of the reasons that I won. So I felt, as I talked more about it, I was like, I've really got to figure out a way to explain this other than it's weird, but I'm really struggling because it's a game where you use your stickers to influence a reality in which there's another version of you, and that version of you is lost and you need to help them with it's very weird. Like, how do you
Yeah, yeah. How
um
did you arrive at this concept? This very, because it has.
and it's an audio game
Ah,
too. It's not a
yeah.
typical like there's a book. It's a
Wow. Yeah.
So I have a lot. I finished my first game, which is I really adore it. It's very simple on the surface, and that's Clean Spirit. But I finished it and I released it, and then I thought I want to do something. I want to do something really weird, really simple. I just want to get something out of my system that seeks to be loud, that doesn't
Mm-hmm.
fit into any easy marketing endeavors that I have. Because as a marketer, I feel the inclination when I'm designing to, of course, design for myself, but to also keep in mind a target audience and sort of like ride that wave into that market, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
something I can't fight. I think it works to my advantage,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Of course.
But I didn't want to do that with the sticker game, and I was like, I just want to do something that's cool and weird and unique and fun for me. And I think in the end I did end up veering down a marketing path without realizing it. But I started creating an activity book basically that was bring your stickers and make this activity book. And I was just really disappointed with an activity book. I was like, that's not unique. That's not interesting. You can go into your Walmart, you can go into your Target or
Yeah.
gas station. You're going to find an activity book and it's going to come with stickers. This isn't interesting in any way. And then I thought, well, okay, well, what if I make a through narrative with it? So there's a story you follow as you go through it. And I thought that's still an activity book. There's nothing here that's really breaking boundaries or challenging any kind of concepts or notions about this genre. And I don't know what made me decide to make it audio. It was because I don't have any audio editing experience. I had to learn a whole software for that game.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Wow.
but eventually I decided, I was like, I think you need a GM, but I also want it to be a solo experience. So I think we just record the GM, and that can
Mm.
add another layer of tension. That can add a layer of world building. We can bring in other voice actors so that there are multiple characters getting involved. And it
Mm-hmm.
feels more active because you're not just reading it, it's playing, and you're playing with it. It's
Yeah,
more
multiple
interactive.
senses too. Yeah.
So that's where we ended up, and I mean it's full sound design. So I call it an audio drama journaling game now, is which still doesn't make a lot of sense to people, but it's the best I can do.
Yeah,
Um,
but they get a sense they are gonna expect something very different, right? Because the name is already very very
because
different.
everyone knows what an audio drama is, and but not everybody knows what a journaling game is. So another phrase I use is structured journaling, which people can latch onto that a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
easily. Okay, structured journaling. Okay, I get it. It'll tell me what to write, and then I do it. And then they're like, but wait, where does the sticker game piece come in? I said, that's where you have to play it and find out. Just bring your stickers, and it'll make sense. The,
That's
and
amazing.
it's
Yeah.
it's it's so rewarding though, because it's a very introspective game, and everyone who plays it comes up to me afterwards because I've run it in a group setting. It's because it's audio. It's great. You can just play it, and all of you can sit around a table. You can throw all your stickers in a pile on the table and play together individually. And so I've hosted a couple of events, and everyone comes up to me afterwards. They're like, I didn't know what to expect, but it wasn't that. This was truly an experience. And so I always now seek that reaction when I'm designing a game. I don't necessarily want it to be I won, I lost. I want it to be I told a great story, and this is an experience that will
Mm-hmm.
stick with me.
Yeah. RPGs especially, I think, have to favor this. Winning or losing doesn't work very well because it's especially if it's a long session, like 3 or 4 hours. Like if you lose in one hour, what you're gonna do? Like the rest of the group's playing or something like this. And solo games too, like doesn't really make much difference winning or losing because you can just start another game right after,
Mhm.
right? So I think it's the experience and seeing what happens, even if you're losing, like everything's turning out badly for you, but it has to keep being interesting for you to keep playing and for you to play again, right? So
Mhm,
yeah.
exactly.
Uh, And one thing I ask Cassie too is if you can identify a place of your mind or from a period of time or a subset of culture that you see yourself drawing a lot of inspiration from. I ask that because of course, as game designers or artists and creators, we draw from everything, all the experience we're having, like even this talk we're having ideas, exchanging ideas, it can inspire games too. But I particularly see myself drawing a lot from the pop culture from my childhood, which was kind of my refuge. And I was gonna ask if you see yourself drawing from any particular place that's dear to you, and you see constantly going back there to draw ideas from.
Yeah, I'm gonna sound like a copycat. Less pop culture, but definitely from my childhood. Everything I've released so far is spawned by something in my childhood. Whether that's going through. So Clean Spirit is like my game where you're cleaning your dwelling with other players, and that was inspired by me going through a lot of old items that I needed to get rid of from my childhood as I was moving. So it was hard to reconcile the fact that I love these items, but do I need to take them to every single new apartment? So the Clean
Yeah.
Spirit interrogates that. And then the sticker game is dealing with the childhood quality and innocence of stickers and turning them into something that have a lot more intention and value to you emotionally, which I think is recapturing that childhood um, value that we have with items. Like I don't know if in Brazil you all have sticker machines, but part of my childhood was going into the local Pizza Hut, and they would have these sticker vending machines, and I would beg my mom for 50 cents. You would put in 50 cents and you would get this very shiny holographic sticker, and you'd bring it to,
Yeah.
to school and you'd trade on the playground. And one time all my stickers were stolen, and like I
Oh,
was crushed. 4 months. I was crying
yeah.
about all my
I
stickers getting
imagine. Yeah.
stolen. Now today, I was like I'll just be like, "Oh, I'll get more
I
stickers.
get more. Yeah,
But if my journal that I've made while playing the sticker game were to get lost or damaged, I
yeah,
think I would feel the same level of sadness. Maybe not as long. I'd probably move on, but I'm attached to
yeah,
it in the same way I think I was, at least
yeah.
similarly,
W- w-
when I was a
We're getting
child.
back to the old thing. It's like we're older now. We say, yeah, this happens. We'll get
Yeah,
over it. But
exactly.
yeah,
You just gotta move on. And
yeah,
then Tangled Blessings, I've always wanted to go to a magical school, and I've just always loved horror and being scared safely. Like, I don't want to be scared. I like being scared when I know in the end me, myself, and I are going to be fine, but like a character isn't going to be fine. I love that.
yeah.
And Carved by the Garden, I talk about this in the end notes of that game. I grew up at the end of a dead end road in the middle of the woods. And I watched, saw, and encountered some really weird stuff in the woods that maybe children shouldn't see or be aware
Wow.
of. And so a lot of that is directly in the game. And I even encourage players to potentially be a child that is leaving their family against their parents' will to go out into the woods day after day. It definitely skews if you play the game as a child as opposed to an adult.
Yeah, but the thing you're saying, like to be a child, is also a great technique for game designing, and I think it's something
True.
you explore too. You have this qualities of play, of child play with your games, and the thing about the stickers, and playing together in the audio and exploring. How can I play with this concept and make it more than just, as you said, you don't explore very much of the math and the
Hmm.
systemic and this very formal kind of game, but to explore the play, the fun and the experience very much. And in the end, that's the end goal. And and as you said, like to explore being a child and being a child as a game designer and someone that's playing and exploring this with less serious eyes can be very very good both for designing and playing the game. So
And
yeah.
storytelling, because I think children, they make stupid decisions, but
Oh
that's
yeah.
why their stories are so interesting. They don't have the wisdom that
There's some
we
less.
have.
Yeah.
So they're not afraid to jump off a ledge that's too high. So
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that can make, I don't necessarily love playing a child, but I do think it's fun to explore that space a little bit when playing and see, because I mean, I like to think of myself as a very rational person, that tries to make the most mature decision in most circumstances. But it's fun to turn all that off and just go with your gut.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh Yes, the other thing that I ask here, I talked about inspirations from sources and things that inspired your games too. But another thing that I ask is maybe what inspires you as an artist, as a creator, maybe another artist, another creator, whether they are from the RPG space, from literature, from cinema, from comics, other creators that maybe inspired you and maybe you try to emulate or you learned from, kind of role models, that maybe you follow. Is there anyone, any kind of
Mhm.
artist that you learned from, and you can talk a little bit about them?
So Whiskey Rabbit is an artist. She does like illustrations and stickers, and she has a TikTok playlist where she goes through how to start a business and how to start a sticker business, which obviously I'm running something that's a little bit more complex than a sticker business. But her encouragement and her personality and the way she approaches content creation have always really inspired me, even before I decided to fully invest myself into this. So before, I was like just releasing things digitally, and I was like, if people buy it, they buy it, whatever. But her talking about how to find suppliers, how to figure out how to use the post office or print out mailing labels, like all of this was a foreign concept to me. It just really made me love her art even more. So I think
Awesome,
that's
yeah.
definitely a creator that she's not even in the tabletop RPG space. I don't even think I think she's gone on
Mm-hmm.
record saying she doesn't like tabletop RPGs. But
Yeah.
it's the fact that like her art was already great, but then having her giving so much access and to information that has literally changed my life has been great.
Yeah.
People in the space that I find incredibly inspirational are Spencer Campbell, one. I have already said that I don't really design games that have a math focus, and I think he's moving away from that, but I do think he does focus a little bit more on mechanics than I do, and I've always been really inspired by how fluid and intuitive his mechanics are. They're just really good. I love playing his games, and I hope someday I can marry the way he does simplistic yet deep design with the way I approach narrative. That's probably never going to happen, but that's a goal that I have someday in my life just because his work is so great. Um other other people that inspire me. The issue is I'm just constantly inspired and I have
Yeah.
ADHD, so I forget.
That's so good. But I mean, there's some of them stuck with you, like the whiskey rabbits you talked about, that taught you a lot, and that's really great. Did the order arrive there, or is everything good or no?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay. uh,
Yes.
and what about RPGs? Do you think RPGs are intrinsically weird by themselves, or in whether you think that or not? What would be your favorite part of the role playing game, either making them or playing them?
I think I'll go on record and say that I think role-playing games are weird. Um, I I don't think you need rules to play role-playing, and I think it's weird that sometimes we feel like we need rules. That said, I'll also go on record and say that I love role-playing games and I'm a weirdo. So I'm okay. I'm okay with that. But when we're kids, we don't really need rules. We just do whatever we want. We just make up stuff as we go, and everybody, buys in, and it's not it's not a thing. But I feel like as you get more into the role playing space, at least for me, I went down this road of I need a rule for everything. I need to know exactly how the physics work. I need to
Yeah.
know exactly if there's robots in the game, what their stats are, and how they can be hacked or shut down from far away, like that type of thing. And I think that was too far for me. I know some people love it. I'm happy for you. Enjoy that. I wish I had the mental capacity to track all of that, but I don't. But I think it's a little weird too that, we need that. We can't just be like, okay, well there's a robot here and if you want to move forward, or a turret, right? And if you want to
Yeah.
move forward, you've got to hack it because it's impenetrable to your guns. What do we think we can do here? And just talking,
Mm-hmm.
that's I'm but at the same time, I love using rules and restrictions to tell a story because I think those type of things really add an interesting challenge and push the creative boundaries.
Yeah. I mean, all book about creativity is always talks about how the limits foster creativity, right? Because you can do this, you find a different way to do that. But I also think rules are toys. It's something that I've been talking lately. And
Yes.
even though we don't need the rules to do stuff, we kind of want them because we want to mess with them. We want to manipulate them. We want to say, oh, I'm going to spend that much points to finally hit them. We want to have this power to mess with these toys that we kind of can't control, right? Because of probability and stuff. But it's fun to play with them. They're really
Yes.
toys, and
Yes.
because with your only narrative, it's very abstract. It's a great exercise of storytelling and creativity.
It can be really difficult for people though.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Too open-ended, not enough
Yeah.
not enough structure.
It's different types of fun. You can have both. You
Right.
can like both, and you can mix both. But you can focus on one or the other depending on what you're playing, and yeah, it's cool. And do you seek weirder RPGs than more traditional ones, or what kind of do you seek the weird in games, and after that, do you seek weird experiences in life too?
I think by default I do because I just tend to gravitate towards indie games, and I think those are weirder than what we find in trad publishing.
Mm-hmm.
That said, I love a good trad published game if there are any. I was joking. There are good ones. But like for example, a really great weird game that came out earlier this year or last year, November, is Hell Whalers.
Mm,
I can't. It's by Bogus Cheesecake and Moss Powers, I think, are the creators. And in that game, you take on the role of there's a GM, but players take on the role of sailors who are everybody's in hell and you're trying to capture a whale like it's a Moby Dick situation. And
mm-hmm.
so it plays with these interesting rules because you're in hell, that you have interesting powers that are affected by hell and sins. And it's so weird, but so cool. I haven't looked at it in a couple months, so it's not exactly on the top of my mind. But it's one of those
Yeah.
games that it creates such a unique experience by tying the setting and the rules and the powers together that it's weird. Like that's a weird game, but I do think it's really cool. And I do seek out games that I think are more focused and really push into a setting space like that. Do I seek out the weirdness in real life? I think so. Um, I mean, I'm always up for trying strange food that I might
Yeah.
not necessarily be comfortable with. I'm always up for a fun drink. And I love visiting strange places if I can. You know, I love to be inspired by weird land formations or weird animals. Um, I think more so than like going to a concert. I would be more enthralled by going to the reptile or bug houses at the zoo.
Oh wow. Yeah. I mean, concerts can be weird too, but what you said about nature and locations and in the real world can be so weird, right? And we because our reality we live every day, and we think this is the world, this is reality, and this is what is out there. But there's so much more, and I love seeing. I like watching documentaries too about nature and stuff. There's
Mhm.
so many weird animals, so many weird places that you can straight off take from nature, from the real world, and put in your games. And people, wow, you created this.
It's like,
No,
no, that's real.
yeah,
Brain
yeah.
worms are real.
There's like in the deep. There's a lot of it we haven't found yet, like in the deep of the ocean, the depths of the
Yes.
ocean, and it's amazing.
And even the stuff we have found deep in the ocean, we still don't understand it completely.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned music there, like you would rather go to like a reptile and stuff than go to a concert, and kind of made me think about music and how some people use music in their creative process. And one question I always ask here is that if you do you have any kind of creative process? Do you creative ritual, something you do either before or during your work that helps you get into the moods and get ready to work on your art?
Yeah, so I almost always make a playlist. I don't usually release it just because the playlist that gets me into the zone or the mode of writing isn't necessarily the playlist that captures the best play experience.
Mm-hmm.
But for example, I sort of pulled this out too in Carved by the Garden. I put it right at the beginning. I listened to like the entire discovery of Sleep Token while I was writing Carved by the Garden. They are a very weird metal band. That I love. And if you listen to them while you play the game, not necessarily sure it's the
Mm-hmm.
right vibe, but they were having it on in the background really put me in the right headspace that I wanted to be in while I was writing. And I think that's true for everything I've written. I find some sort of I love ambience. So for Clean Spirit, it was a lot of lo-fi, nothing with lyrics. Tangled Blessings, it was classical music. Um, Trying to think. Sticker Game, I didn't really listen to anything because that required so much sound design. I was just
Yeah.
listening to the sound design. But I think that's pretty much all I have in terms of like creative ritual at the desk. The other piece
Mm-hmm.
is I have to call out my spouse and my partner, who I have he has full credits on the Sticker Game because he is the narrator for it, because we go on walks. I find that leaving the desk and talking to someone about what I'm thinking is so powerful for my creative process. So he's always listed as
Mm-hmm.
an editor or a contributor, or I've changed the title depending on the game and how much I feel he's
Yeah.
contributed. But especially if I'm stuck, I'll be like, let's go for a walk. And he just listens while I ramble on and on about where I am. And then because I have this sounding board, I can get to a place I just wouldn't have arrived at by myself. And then if
Is he
he
a designer too, or
no.
no? Yeah, but
No.
it's great
He
because
wants
it's
to
very
be.
different mindsets work better together than people who think the same. So it's great
Yeah.
that he's not too.
I think he's probably going to release something in the next couple of years, just because he has ideas. We've been talking so much that now he can't,
Yeah,
he
yeah,
can't not do his own thing, which is
yeah.
great. I hope that
Yes,
I can pay him back and be that sounding board for him. Which I've heard some of his ideas. They're very cool. So I hope he takes the chance to
that's
follow
amazing.
through on them.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that I think that's a really vital part is if you want to be
Hmm.
any creative space, actually. I mean, even if you're just drawing, having someone else look over your drawing or talking to them about what you're thinking of adding to it, it's so helpful to get a fresh perspective.
Oh yeah, because we are so embedded in the work, we're seeing it from
Yep,
inside, so we can't see a lot of the stuff that others will almost see immediately, right?
exactly.
And
Yeah.
it kind of me reminds a technique about writing that Richard Ruane shared here in the show, which was the
I adore
sprint
Richard.
writing.
What'd you
And
say? Sorry, I just wanted
it's,
to say how much I adore Richard.
yeah, he's fantastic. And then he talked about sprint writing, which
Oh,
he's
yes.
doing like once a week. He meets someone in a cafe, another designer, another creative person. They meet in a cafe and they order coffee and they write or they work on their projects for like half an hour. And when the time dings, like the alarm dings, they stop and they talk about it, discuss it, and trade ideas.
Oh,
It's
wow.
it's similar to what you're saying you're doing with your partner or spouse, uh, but we could do that with a group, like a small group of game designers.
Mhm.
Like here in Brazil, I play with another 3 game designers. We have a group that we play test each other games. Other people that are game designers too, but we often meet up and talk about the stuff they are making, and but that about sitting down writing and talk about exactly what you did there, it's probably very good. And I so want to do that someday. So I don't know if you heard about this, but it's like a great idea if you can foster like a community
Mhm.
near where you are and meet those people and work together and talk about it. It made me think about that when you talk about the collaboration you have with your spouse and
And I mean,
partner.
I think that I don't think it's unique to designers. Like, I think writers in general, like having a writing community and
Yeah.
people you can just, an editor is great. And I always hire an editor and I always hire a proofer. But
Mm-hmm.
like having developmental conversations. If your goal is to release something, because I think it does depend on your goal, what you're releasing. If you just want to
Mm-hmm.
release something, do what you want, man. Make yourself happy. But if you do want to get to a level where it's the best that you think you can make it in a space where you think it will be
Yeah.
successful, depending on what success is for you, I think that having that sounding board early on and then throughout is a very powerful tool.
Yeah. Yeah. And find people you respect.
Exactly.
I love this phrase that say don't accept criticism from people you wouldn't take advice from. You know,
Yes.
if you wouldn't go from that person for advice, don't care about their criticism, but try to find the people that you trust, your friends or the game designer you admire. And if you want to try to do this and exchange with them and learn from them, and I think can be very valuable. And that idea you said about success, what is good and what's not, and it's exactly what you want. And don't think you have to be exactly as other people. They have their success or having their uh, same amount they earn on a Kickstarter to be successful.
Right.
This is very, very. Have your own idea what is success for you. And for
Hmm.
me, the idea, I think it's healthier. Just focus on the process and making the best
Yep.
work you can do, and the rest comes after. I guess. I don't know.
Yep.
Hello, wonderful weirdos. This is Diogo Nogueira again, and today I'd like to talk to you about one of my favorite games, a game that I created. And if you listen to the podcast, I love dinosaurs, and it's called Primal Quest. It is a weird stone and sorcery adventure game. It's a NSR game, which is this game that caters to the old school style of play, but has more modern and more cinematic gameplay adapted to our modern sensibilities. It has adventures with dinosaurs, ancient civilizations, spirity, sorcery, aliens, elder gods, and much, much more. It's very pulpy. It has, a complete rule set, a mini hex scroll, an adventure introductory adventure. You can find it at Exalted Funeral, itch.io, Drive-Thru RPG, and your best local game store. And we're releasing more and more stuff for it, so stay tuned and play Primal Quest. So let's get back to the weird with our chat. So, Cassi, talking about weird games more, role-playing games, I wanted to ask you maybe what would be the weirdest game you probably played, or maybe a very weird game you played recently that's maybe made an impression on you and made you think about game design in a new way. Do you remember anything like this? And it can be role-playing games, it can be board game, it can be a video game or anything like this.
That's a really good question. I play a lot of games, so I'm trying to think. I just cleaned, so there's none right in front of me as I look around. Weirdest game I played.
It can be a session too, or maybe some game you played on your own design, that a session that made really a great impact on your...
I mean, it's not a super weird game, but I played Nova by Spencer Campbell recently, and it's kind of a weird game. You have really cool, I don't know, it's just a cool game. You play in these robot suits and you have these really cool powers. It's super intuitive to use them, and we told this story about this weird cult coming in the city and trying to steal the sun from our city, and it's the light source for the city, so it was a big deal. We had to sacrifice some people in order to stop the cult, and I mean, there are bird people in it's a really cool, diverse game with a very interesting and fun rule set. And one of our players, he really leaned into his character. He was like a bug guy, so his whole robot suit was bug themed and all his powers were bug themed, so he like used cicadas to like shut down some infantry. He had like a scout fly that would, I don't know.
Okay,
it was really cool how he fully leaned into the aesthetic of everything.
Yeah. It's weird how we see insects as something so weird, right? They are everywhere near us, but if we zoom in, they like
they're very
look
strange.
So freaking alien. But we don't know this because they're so small. We don't. It's a black dot walking around. It's like an ant. But if you zoom in, they're like, what the hell is that?
Yeah, like their
I love
skeletons
insects.
outside their body. What is that about?
Yeah, I love insects. They seem so common, and they are wow. And their reproductive cycles, the larvae, they wow, yeah.
Like butterflies and moths
them.
are so weird, right? Like they're caterpillars, and then they go in a chrysalis or cocoon, basically disintegrate and rebuild themselves. It's like, is it the same creature? Like, if it has a consciousness, does it have memories of before?
Yeah,
I don't know. It's really weird to think about, though.
Yeah. We need a game about being a butterfly and doing.
I'm sure there is one.
Sure. Yeah, it probably is, but I have yeah. Now we need to find that and put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
Cassie, what would you say would be do you think you have any kind of strength or advantage that you explore and use while you're doing your work?
I think it's an advantage and a disadvantage. I've got two, and I think the one is straight advantage. I got my master's in writing. So I worked in publishing while I was getting my master's. So I was the publisher at the on-campus publishing house. So I have a lot of experience in writing, in reading a wide variety of literature, in understanding how a book goes through production and the proper steps for that. Now, tabletop RPGs are a little bit different, but I was able to bring over a lot of skills. So that is one of the ways I've moved so fast, right? Compared to maybe other designers. If they're looking at me and being like, how is she able to do so much in a few years? Well, I mean, if you zoom out, it's really been about 10, right?
Yeah.
And then my other piece that is
There's a
my
lot of invisible work, right?
right.
People
Uh,
say, "Oh yeah, they came out of nowhere and made $1 million or something."
yeah.
Yeah, they're
There was
working on this. Yeah,
I made
not
all my
necessarily on this,
mistakes
but
earlier. Yeah.
yeah, you did a lot of stuff before this, so that's all
Yes.
preparation. Yeah.
And then the piece that I think is an advantage and a disadvantage is that like I have 8 years of marketing experience, and I say that's an advantage because I know how to position my projects and my products uh, effectively. I know how to pull out the pieces that make them unique, that make them sell well in my eyes, and pull that forward in a way that I think communicates them well. The disadvantage to this is it's hard for me to go all in on a project and do the super weird or the super unique thing because it can affect marketability. And I mean, it's something I cannot be cognizant of if I want a game to have a little bit of commercial success. I mean, it's capitalism, so I always have to decide how much of this am I interested in making money and how much of this am I just
Mm-hmm.
interested in the art of it. And for me, that's a balance that I have to strike. It's not true for everybody, and it's totally
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
designer's choice. But for me, I want to make money, and I'm not really ashamed to say that because if I want to make money, I get to bring on contributors now, right? It's not just me,
Yeah.
and it's because I put my stuff in such a way that it is more marketable. I have the funds. I can bring on extra people. I can hire other people to be my editor, be my proofer. It sucks that you have to play the game of capitalism
Yeah.
in order to grow. I feel like I know other people haven't, but I
Yeah.
at least for me, I feel like I've had to. And I think it's an advantage because I've been able to work with others and collaborate with them in a way that I wouldn't before. But it's a disadvantage because maybe I'm not making fully authentic art, right?
You are. I mean, you're saying this, but your games are so unique. You of course you have to take some, think about because you're not really not making for yourself. We love to talk about I make game for myself, but if we did only make for, we wouldn't publish them.
True,
So
100% true.
we can't. It's like the immersion and the metagaming. We can't separate each from each other.
Yeah.
You're always gonna be aware that you're playing a game, and you're always gonna have moments of immersion. So you're always gonna have moments you're like purely artistic. I really want to explore this thing. This is gonna be weird. Like the things you did with the secret game. It's very artistic. It's very weird. It was hard to marketing, but you did it anyway, and you can explore ways to make it work. So I think we have to balance those things, and I think there's nothing wrong with exploring a more marketing oriented product and having other more artistic ones on the side and to play with. We don't have to restrict ourselves. Oh, only gonna make this type of thing, and having this balance is very important. I'm starting a podcast with a friend here in Brazil where we have this very opposite views. I'm very into this more artistic. I'm gonna make it this way. I don't care. Like I'm thinking a lot of making games that you can't play online.
Hmm.
Think about mechanics that you have to be on the table with people. It's a terrible idea in marketing nowadays, right?
Right.
But
But
it can be very interesting, right?
yeah.
And so I think we can follow both paths, and it's good to think about them.
Yeah, I think
Being
it's
aware of it.
yeah, I think it's more so like I said, there's positives and negatives, and I think it's just being aware of where am I leaning here and being intentional about what I'm doing.
Intention, yeah.
Hmm.
It's all about intention, yeah. And what did you say? It's something that you struggle more with, you have more difficult with when doing your work and producing your games.
Lately, it's just focusing, to be completely honest. I burned out really hard last year. I did
You
a
did a
lot.
lot, nah.
I launched my
Yeah.
shop. I started selling at conventions for the first time. I brought all my games to physical production, and they hadn't been before. I ran 2 crowdfunding campaigns last year. So I did a lot. It was a great year. I don't regret any of it. I learned so much. But this year, I'm taking it pretty slow. That's why my one and only
Hmm.
crowdfunding campaign isn't until the summer is over because last year I missed out on a lot of stuff. I just didn't have a summer. I worked all summer during all
Yeah.
my free time. So I'm also just trying to, I'm I'm telling myself that like I said, I think I said it on the show. I'm really into Fallout New Vegas right now, and I'm sort of
Mm-hmm.
telling myself like this is research, right? It's
Yeah,
also
it
important to
is.
recharge. So it's
Yeah,
like, you might not be making money off of this, and you might not be being productive in the traditional sense, but this is still an investment into what you're doing. It's so
yeah.
enjoy it, take the moment. So I think the thing I struggle with is not dealing with the guilt of not being productive, which I know is a
Yes, yes.
universal feeling.
It's terrible. Uh, but we have this idea, like you said, like we like to think we're very rational, and we all like to think
Yeah.
humans love to think we're rational animals, and most of the time we are not. But we
True.
have this idea that progress, we are doing something is a straight line. You begin here and you just go straight ahead, like productivity or creativity. It's always a line, but it's not. And we learn that in math, but we don't internalize it. It's like the normal curve, It goes up and it goes down and goes up, and everything is like this. Relationships, creativity, projects, right? A project, you go higher, super inspired, and things. Oh, it's terrible. It's not gonna happen. Yeah, I'm gonna abandon this. But keep going. Oh no, it's gonna work. All right. It's
You just
everything.
described every experience
Yeah,
I've ever had.
every experience is this, but we forget, right? We
We
forget
do.
this, and
Well,
and you said,
a lot of our games, both tabletop and video game and even board game, like there isn't that drop, right? It's almost always a straight line. So it's, we want to,
yeah,
we always talk about how we want to emulate life in games, but there is no drop off usually. You level up in games. You don't usually lose your level. I know there's some games where you do, but more often than not,
yeah,
you're only getting stronger and better.
yeah. That's true. That's true. Although some of the more modern games, the more narrative, they have this downtime, or you're getting stressed. I
True.
love the uh,
That's true.
not delving deeper. It was Bird, Best Left Bird has this. Your character gets better, in skills,
Mhm.
but he's deteriorating. He's getting tired. He's getting older. He's getting, disturbed because of the
Oh,
things he's seeing. So I think we
interesting.
we can play. That's a very good way to see it. We can play not necessarily with advancing, but changing the characters in some way. They
Mhm.
can learn, but they can get other things too, and become different and not necessarily better, right?
Mhm. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Uh, Cassie, now we are arriving about 1 hour of podcasting, and I want to ask more personal question about your life, about your creativity, about your experiences, and I'd like to start maybe talking about your beliefs. Like, do you believe in God? Are you a religious person? Do you have any sort of spirituality, or do you study any kind of philosophy that maybe help you navigate life and difficulties and the relationship or anxiety, stress, anything like this?
Sure. I do not consider myself a religious person. I wish I were because I think it would make a lot of mourning easier that I've gone through in my life. Um, that said, Rascal, which is a new tabletop RPG focused news resource, just posted an article on me. I did an interview back in January. And while I also said in that interview, I'm not spiritual, the author went on to say, but the way Cassie describes her experience playing games does seem very spiritual to me. So even though I
Yeah.
say I'm not spiritual, I do think I express that in other ways, just by fully investing myself in my hobbies in a way that I think defines my identity a little bit. I get emotionally wrapped up in them, in a way that I can't sleep or I can't not focus on that. Part of that is, ADHD and OCD and all of those things. But I think also
Mm-hmm.
I if I were a religious person, this is how it would manifest in similar ways of um, not being able to stop talking about the things I love and
Yeah.
how tabletop RPGs enable me to explore my imagination. Um, so that's where I am on that spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
I say I don't believe in ghosts, but if it's the middle of the night and there's a strange sound, you better believe it's probably a ghost, right? Um,
Yeah, I don't believe in ghosts, but I really saw one
yeah,
day. That's kind of stuff. I don't believe in ghosts, but I'm pretty sure I saw one yesterday.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Um, yeah,
Oh,
what was
I love that
go
that
ahead.
description you said about spirituality and hobby, because I think art is very spiritual, and the making of it and the creation, because spirituality has a lot to do with God and the creation and being part of something greater. And what is our hobby if not something greater? Like we're producing something for the community and people are playing and connecting with it and talking about it and creating based on the thing you made. So you're connecting to people all around the world, not necessarily have the same language. You may not never have seen them, but you are creating these connections. You are being part of something greater. And I think that's inherently spiritual,
I
right?
love that. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. So, do you believe in gods or no?
I don't think so. No.
Okay. Yeah.
Uh yeah, I've always struggled with that, and the more I live and see, the harder it is for me
Yeah.
uh
Yeah.
to acknowledge any kind of other existence. Um so I would say no.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, I would say God as this entity that knows what's going on and kind of controls things. It's very unrealistic for me, and so much terrible things happen. If there was this benevolent guy watching and he wouldn't do anything, he wouldn't be benevolent at all, right?
Mhm.
Like so you're out there watching all these people doing these stupid things, and you're supposed to take care of it. You're just like, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
That's the hard part for me.
the older I get,
Uh,
the harder it is for me to rationalize any kind of higher being. So,
yeah, yeah. I understand. But is there anything you talk about ADHD? I have autism and anxiety, and anxiety is terrible for me. And you said about maybe a religion makes you or these moments easier. For you, do you think the making of art and playing of games and exploring this ludic space and expression is the thing that helps you through the day, through the difficult times? I for example, I for my anxiety I do exercise, meditation, stoicism, and even I have a prescription for cannabis because of this. Uh, do you have anything that helps you deal with the difficult times? Be whether it's gaming, it's creating, it's doing exercise or anything like this.
yeah, so I'm still exploring how the best tools for me. I've practiced stoicism in the past, and it wasn't something that I could stick with. I just didn't. I don't think it's necessarily for me. I wish it was situation. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now it and I try to exercise if I feel a lot of anxiety. I try to find the time to do that. But I've yet to find anything that really is the goal, the holy grail, right, of
Mm-hmm.
addressing my flux of issues. So when I was a child, I was diagnosed with ADHD, obsessive compulsive disorder, and a behavioral disorder. And I was medicated for a while, and I haven't been medicated for a very long time. And part of that is the American healthcare system.
Oh yeah.
So I don't have any professional support. So that's another goal that I have this year is to seek out um, the professionals and potentially see about getting on some actual medication again. Part of that is
Mm-hmm.
the career change. We're hoping that enables that a little bit more now because in the US, your healthcare is tied to your employer. So, um, outside of that, I
Yeah.
mean, journaling is a big piece of how I try to make sense of the world. It's very difficult.
So
Go ahead.
So you do have a journaling that it's not a game journal, right? Like a solo journaling. Do you journal every day or?
I intend to.
Oh yeah,
It does
yeah. It's
not
hard.
does
Yeah,
not
yeah.
always happen. My goal this year was to write a sentence a day. I just became with the job change, I just didn't have time to stay on track with it. but it's also like a scrapbook. I bought a specific journal that has watercolor paper, so I can also paint in it. I
Mm,
can glue
that's
things into
awesome.
it.
Yeah.
So it's not just a writing situation. It's also I just want to capture where I
Mm-hmm.
am, because
Memories. Yeah.
yeah, I think, like a lot of folks, the last few years have been lacking in memories, because no one has done anything. A lot of us have been sheltering in place. We're starting to come out, but your life is not measured in years, it's measured in experiences. And
Mm-hmm.
I haven't had a lot. So I'm trying to anything that even counts as a small experience, like going to the movie theater, going to the farmer's market, trying to capture that even a little
Yeah.
bit, just so it feels more like a moment and less like something I did to get out of the house. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I think that's also a piece of how I cope, so to speak.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, you mentioned you tried this stoicism, and stoicism talks a lot about journaling, right? And I try to do that too, as same as you. I don't remember every day. Like sometimes I skip a couple of days. But what I do is, like at the end of the day, I try to write three good things that happen. It doesn't have to be like I'm grateful for this, but like, oh, my kid gave me a hug.
Oh,
I found a chocolate, or oh, the coffee I drank at somewhere was very good. Just very small. Doesn't have to be big things. Just things
mhm.
that made you smile or say, oh, because it's very easy for us to remember the bad stuff, right? When we think about, oh, what happened today, the first thing you're gonna remember is the bad stuff because it was something we had to deal with, we had to struggle with, and solve it in any way. So it's very pregnant. We remember
Yes.
that a lot easier. But for to remember the good stuff, it's really an effort, right? And people say you have to think about the good stuff 9 times more than the bad stuff first to internalize it. So these small things, I think, help us see that, yeah, there's good things here and there, and life is all about the small good things, I think. And
Yes, I have to agree
yeah,
with you. It
yeah,
really is.
yeah. Otherwise, we that thing is that like we focus on the bad things, but in 5 years we won't remember
Right.
this. But we're focused on this in not enjoying the other good things that are happening around us. And the journaling really helps you to capture that and say, no, I don't have to think about this. This is what I have to think about. Right. uh, Also, you talked about ghosts and you don't believe in it. And do you have any other supernatural kind of experience? Have you ever seen a UFO or alien? I mean, I even saw another day. I saw a show from. I love comedy and I love John Oliver. His show is so good and it
Yes.
was about UFOs and it was like, you may not believe about aliens, but UFOs, definitely we have read shirts about this stuff. Are you curious about this or?
Oh yeah, who isn't curious about UFOs? I have never seen one. I'm the type of person that's like ghosts aren't real, Nessie isn't real, Bigfoot isn't real. But will I watch a documentary that's like
Oh yeah,
trying to? Yes, I'm fully
yes.
invested. I want,
Inspiration,
yeah,
yeah, inspiration.
I want to be proven wrong so badly. Uh, I want to
Yeah,
see proof so badly. It would just make my day to learn that Nessie is real, that they have found Nessie. We've got photos
yeah.
and people are writing her around. Like, that would be amazing, right? For
That's true.
UFOs, I do have a really funny story I want to tell really quick. This was years ago. I was still in high school and my mother and I were eating. I like this memory is so locked in my brain. We were eating at this Chinese restaurant and we were getting our food to go and she was paying and I was like, I'm ready to walk out because it was a buffet and it just was full of people and I've never done really
Mm-hmm.
well and people. I was like, I'm ready to leave. So I walk outside. I'm by myself. I've got this they let us take some food to go and I have this to go container. I drop it on the ground as I look up at the sky and I see four lights just swirling in the sky. And I feel my stomach fall out of my body. I feel like all my joints spring to life in a way
Ah,
that I can't explain. I think this was true fear and my brain wasn't sure if I needed to fight or I needed to flight. And so I'm just standing there unsure of the world. And my mother walks out and I can't even get the words out. I'm just like and I point and she looks up and she goes, "Oh, spotlights. The car dealership is having a sale." And she just points across the street and the dealership has these huge spotlights that they're just rotating in the sky to get
Mm.
attention. So I didn't get to take home my Chinese because it was spilled all over the ground. But I remember,
Oh.
so I won't react well when the UFOs finally come for me, is what I learned.
Uh,
But I
they
would,
owe you some food. Yeah.
yes. But yes,
Yeah.
I mean, who can't believe in UFOs? They're real, right? I don't know if they're extraterrestrial. I
Yeah,
would
that's the
like to think
thing.
so, as long as they're friendly. But I mean, I think there are extraterrestrials out there. I think it's incredibly
Unlikely
silly.
that we're all alone. Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredibly silly to think there's no one else out there. Now, can they reach us? I don't know.
Yeah, that's my question too. Like I don't it's just that logically it's impossible we're the only
Yeah.
intelligent species in the whole universe that's always expanding. And but yeah, I'm not sure they have been here. But I kind of hope so too. Like
Yeah.
this UFO things are so weird, and even nobody can explain them, right? Even the U.S. government has a bunch of files. They say, yeah,
They're weird.
it's there. We can't explain it.
I will
It is what
say
it is.
the documentaries I watch, and I know they're all for entertainment, but the ones I watch, because I watch a lot of them, the
Hmm.
ones about UFOs where they bring in military personnel who are like, we can't explain this or this or this. Like, this isn't, those are the ones, they're so believable and they
Yeah.
feel so credible compared to like a Bigfoot documentary or the creature of the deep documentary, right?
Yeah.
Because these are military people going on record and saying,
And they have footage.
yeah,
They have files. They have reports. They have all this
I
stuff.
hope
Yeah.
we find out in our lifetime what's going on.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
Yeah. Cassie, I know asking about other things about experiences. One thing I always ask here is if you have any experience with altered states of awareness, whether it is through deep states of meditation, hypnosis, or even use of psychedelics. And if you did, has any of these experiences made you think about things in a different way or see the world in a different perspective?
I don't have any experience with anything. I tend to avoid a lot of substances just because I'm unmedicated, so I get nervous about
Mm-hmm.
how all of my stuff that I have will react
Yeah, yeah.
to anything. It's not something I'm against,
Mm-hmm.
should the opportunity present itself. But I mean, I don't even really drink alcohol that much. It's very I'm just I get very
Yeah.
frustrated if I want to do something and I can feel I don't have the mental capacity to do it. So if I've
Mm-hmm.
had a drink, and I only need one to be where you need to be usually when you're drinking.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm a lightweight. And I'll get frustrated if I can't get rid of that feeling. Especially if I like want to work or I want to do art, it's like, oh my gosh, I can feel that I'm
Oh
not
yeah.
as connected with my
Yeah,
body
yeah,
or my
yeah.
mind as I want to be, and this is so frustrating. So I think it could be helpful for me to disconnect, but also I might just get really mad.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, those things work very different from each person, so
Exactly.
it's very
True.
a very personal thing, and it has to do a lot of the people you are with, if you're doing those things, where you are, if you're doing it safely and very slowly. So yeah, if you're not feeling safe, or better not to try it
Yeah.
because yeah, uh, of course. And we're getting into more the fun and whimsical questions here. Before I get that, I forgot to ask you about dreams. Like, do you remember your dreams? Do you
Oh,
have
yes.
regular dreams?
I have very vivid. So I famously cannot get to sleep. I have a whole situation where I have to wear an eye mask that has
Mm-hmm.
headphones in it, and I have to have something going on, whether that's a meditation video or white noise or rain. I don't know what I'm going to need that night. My brain tells me if it's not working after 20 minutes, I've got to shift gears to something else.
Wow.
So I need all of that to go to sleep. So for example, last night I didn't get to sleep until about 1 a.m. just because I couldn't figure out what my brain wanted. And then I was awake at 3. And that's how long I've been awake.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
I remember the dreams. I did. my brain decided it needed to listen to NPR last night. So I was listening to a interview with a Pulitzer Prize winning artist, and my dream ended up being me interviewing the writer, and talking about their experience. So that was weird, but no, I've always had extremely vivid dreams. Like, another childhood memory I have is having a nightmare. I don't even think I was older than 6, and I woke up in the
Wow.
dream. I woke up to everyone being turned into alligators, except they were still a lot like
Wow.
your Cosmosaurus. They looked a lot. Everybody looked
Yeah.
a lot like this. They were still bipedal, but I was the only human, and I was just so upset because my mom was now no longer my mom. She was an alligator, and it was traumatizing in a
For sure.
way.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Did they try to eat you or anything, or did they act
They
normal
wanted me to
on the
turn into an
dream?
alligator, so I had to go do swimming lessons at the
Ah.
pool. I
Well, at least was on the pool. Was on like in a swamp, an alligator swamp or
Right. It was
something like
it
this.
was
Yeah.
they had turned the water yellow, so I guess they had drained, like, it's crazy I
Okay.
remember this dream, but yeah, they had drained the
Yeah,
pool. And
6 years old. That's like. Do you have a good memory for stuff? Do you usually remember stuff easily? No, of course.
Before COVID, I
Yeah.
used to have a
Oh
really
yeah.
good memory. With COVID, I only caught it as recently as last year. I had it in November, but I think just with the
Mm,
staying home and not having more of a structured
yeah.
schedule, my memory just has kind of gone. But just circling back a little bit to the dream discussion, I when I got my first COVID vaccine, I did not react well to it. I had fever dreams that were extremely
Yeah.
intense, but I was able to use those in a Dungeons and Dragons session a couple days later. So that was good.
Yeah. Do you take note? You talk about journaling. Do you take notes of your dreams? Do you steal from them
If
for
I
your
feel
games?
like it's useful, I have like a note app on my phone.
Oh, great.
I
Yeah.
rather take notes on my phone because I've just lost journals over the years, so it's easier for me to pull up a note, especially
Yeah.
if it's dark, and take a note in my phone. But yeah, take notes at night. That's one of my best ideas hit for sure. I wrote "Carved by the Garden." Most of that happened probably after the hours of 12 a.m. So
Yeah. I'm always like my phone is. No matter what I am, I have an idea. I have to stop and write it down. Otherwise, we'll forget.
yeah,
Do you use an app that syncs with the cloud so you can do notes every time? I use the OneNote and organize stuff in folders. There's so much stuff in there, and it's something that other readers out there that want to create try to get something like this to a repository of all your
hmm
notes that you can consult. And if you're missing an idea, just flip through your notes. Something will come up and you'll steal for yourself.
yes,
And
it's so
it's
useful. I
great.
use Notion usually. I found it. I really need to clean it up because it's a mess right now. But I find it to be a
Hmm.
great place to drop a bunch of ideas usually.
Yeah, I tried the one from Google, Evernote, but the I figure out with the OneNote from
I tried
Microsoft
OneNote.
just
Yeah, it's got
worked
some
for
really
me.
cool
Yeah.
features.
Uh, it's the folder things, the colors was things
hmm
that easier for me to organize. I was like, I'm gonna stick with this one. I changed it very many times. Like, no, I'm gonna stick with this one now. Yeah. Uh, Something else, Cassie. You talked about being an artist too, and I'm always curious about other creativity pursuits you might have besides role playing games. I know you have a day job too, but do you have any other maybe hobbies you explore just for yourself? You're not trying to publish anything or anything like this.
So I like to do karaoke. Um, and I did
That's
not
great.
think that was ever going to really show itself in tabletop RPGs. But for Carved by the Garden, I wrote and recorded a song just for the trailer because I was like,
Mm.
I'm not at the stage where I can hire anybody to do that for me. And it
Mm-hmm.
did so well. It ended up releasing as a single. I released it as a single because people were asking for it. It didn't just do it by itself. But I do think that's a very funny and interesting way some hobbies have intersected because I did choir in school, but I'm not a trained singer. Like I said, I don't really have any kind of sound design
Mm-hmm.
experience. I can't play an instrument. I just put some sounds together. and sang over it, and it was great. And that's just funny that it's because I do
Wow.
karaoke, a few times a year.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing I said, like from one thing you learn 1,000 things. So maybe everything you learn from art, from marketing, for how to
Exactly.
make something presentable. That all things kind of help you with probably the music, even though you may not have like a formal training in all of this. But it's very cool. And do you feel like exploring other artistic pursuits some days? Is anything you would like to pursue someday?
Yeah, so I really want to get into oil painting and water painting a lot more. Right now, I just don't have the space where I live to set up any kind of studio. And honestly, I don't have the funds to invest in all the paint that would require, or canvases. But it's a
Yeah.
medium that I just find the work people create in it so beautiful. I do a lot of work on my iPad right now, which wasn't cheap, but it's it's compact. I can bring it anywhere, and
Mm-hmm.
I bought the Procreate app, which at the time it was $10, and now I've been able to draw wherever I want with
Yeah, and it's a
minimal space.
computer.
Yeah.
You use for anything else. You use for read books. You use.
Yeah,
I love my
it's
iPad too.
great
Yeah,
for tabletop RPG.
yeah,
I love it.
yeah, yeah.
I hate being like, I'm not an Apple person. I'm an Android usually, or a Windows person, but God, they really knocked it out of the park
I
with the iPad, you
uh,
know.
I am an Apple person. It just works. I love it because I can copy paste on everything, and it's just
I
like
had a Mac.
this camera is my phone, and
Yeah, I
like
had
yeah,
a
it
Mac for a
works.
short period, and it was pretty nice how fluid the Mac and the
Yeah,
iPad work together. I won't lie, it
yeah,
was very nice.
yeah. I end up not playing that many games on computer, so I was like, yeah, the Mac just works because once I got a Mac and it works for years, and but it's very expensive. I need to buy a new computer. Then I got a PC and like a good PC from Dell or something,
Mhm.
and like in 2 years it was already having all sorts of problems. And my old Mac, it was like 10 years old, was still working, and I was like, fuck this,
Yeah.
I'm gonna buy another Mac.
That's fair, that's fair. See, I build my own computer, and Windows is a
Yeah.
lot easier to build in than Mac, so
Oh yeah. It's just that I'm lazy,
You're
and
not
the Macs.
lazy, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well, for computers, I am. I mean, at least I don't
You
have
just have
because
different priorities. You're not lazy.
yeah, yeah, yeah. you know, we don't. I don't even open this to clean like the dust and stuff. And I remember computer have to open and clean stuff. I'm like,
Yeah,
oh
that's
no.
fair.
Yeah. Uh, Now let's go for the whimsical fun things and the questions that we explore a little more of your taste, personalities, and creativity too, which you have a lot. So, Cassie, if you could live in any fictional setting, world, universe, uh, whether it's from gaming, from fiction, from literature, movies, where would you choose to live, and who would you be in that setting?
Oh, that is such a good question. And I feel like my answer to this changes like a lot because of whatever my special interest is at the moment.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
so
That's why we can interview again
yeah.
you in like a couple of years. So
So I
yeah.
think I think if I were younger, I'd probably say I want to live in the Avatar: The Last Airbender universe. But growing, and I would obviously I'd want to be like a bender. I don't know what I would be, but I'd want to be a bender.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be, but I would. When I say I want to live in that universe, it's because I want to be. Um, but growing up now and looking back, like it's set in a war torn country with genocide. Like it's pretty
Yeah.
awful. So
I
it's
mean, there are other ages, right? Maybe you could live in an age that they are past this. I don't know.
yeah, they all seem bad though.
Yeah.
So it's hard. You know what? Probably the easiest and safest one would be like Stardew Valley. Even though there is a war going on in that one, I do love that game, and yeah, it's very calming and peaceful for me, which would be good for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you live anywhere? Do you live in a big city, or do you live in a more smaller city that's more calm and tranquil?
So it's interesting. Right now, I live in St. Louis, Missouri, which I think is one of the most spread out cities. So it's not as big as like a Chicago or New York or
Mm-hmm.
Washington D.C. It's still a city and it's large, but it's by
Yeah.
no means a metropolis like
Yeah.
the larger cities, which is why there are no movies set here. But before I moved here, I lived for 10 years in a really small city. And before I lived there, I lived in the middle of nowhere. So I've really just moved into the populace.
Entendi. Yeah. And what do you prefer? Do you prefer the more crowded ones that are more stuff happening, or do you prefer a more peaceful neighborhood and then a city?
I
Because it,
love I love being able to get takeout. I love having a
yeah,
variety of food to eat. I love having a park.
yeah.
Living in the middle of nowhere, I mean, it's nice in the sense of you're not going to get solicitors usually, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can go out in your yard and do whatever you want. Nobody's going to see, right?
Yeah.
The privacy
Criminality must be a lot lower too, right?
yeah.
You know.
The privacy is great, but it's also really scary. So, like, tornadoes. We were in Tornado Alley. So if a tornado
Yeah.
comes through and you're by yourself, you have to hope your neighbors might come check on you and see that your house isn't destroyed. I mean, nowadays folks have cell phones. When I lived there, there was no internet, there were no cell
Mm-hmm.
phones, there was no we had dial up, and it
Yeah, it's
was
scary.
you could not load a web page with the dial-up, and I think that's still true for some areas in Missouri. Your internet is going to be we wouldn't be able to have this call if I still lived in the woods. So that's another aspect that I enjoy about living in the city. The reality of it is I have access to a library, um, a
Mm-hmm.
good library, which is where I mean I've got research done. I'll
Yeah.
show you. I've got research.
People to play games with, right? Like
Yeah,
in
like I
big
can go to the
cities, you can find
library,
people.
get books,
Ah, yeah.
and living in a city, you pay more taxes, but your library is more robust. You get access to more resources. So I think for me, I like having that access and I like it not being, for when I lived in the middle of nowhere, civilization, the small city was 30 minutes away. So now it's just outside.
Yeah. That's great. And we talked about the living in the weird fictional setting. What about the other way? Like, if you could take anything from a fictional world or universe, whether game, fiction, comics, whatever, and make that thing real in our world, what would you choose to make and why? And this thing can be an entity and an object, a power source, a location, a faction, any element from these worlds and make it real in our world.
Yeah, I'm gonna be boring and say magic. Like I would love to be magical. I wanted to be a witch so bad when I was a child. You know,
How would magic work in our world? How?
yeah, so I would have it for sure. Uh, and it wouldn't require any kind of blood sacrifice or hurting anybody. And not
Can
everybody would.
anyone learn it?
Yeah, I
Or
feel
can
like
anyone?
I want to be like, no, not everybody can learn it because then people will have, will they will be used for the wrong power or the wrong activities. But who am I to be the judge of that? Sure, everybody can learn
Maybe
it.
they can, but they have to align their will to the will of the universe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would just be really cool to be able to light a candle with my mind. Or snap my finger
Yeah.
and there's a banquet of food, or just to talk to my cat. I would love that. It would probably get really
Yes.
annoying after a while, but I would love it. He goes in the stairwell and he meows all day and I'm like, what do you need? You're fed. I've played with you. What do you need? And there's definitely a communication barrier
Yeah.
there.
Have you seen those videos on Instagram or TikTok where people put those buttons on the floor and the cats and the
I've
animals
tried.
like
They
talk?
won't
Yeah.
take to it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. We have cats here too. We always thought about getting those, but then like they're like 12 years old. They're not gonna learn this now.
If we press the button, they know what it means, but they won't. They don't engage with the
Oh, okay.
button.
Yeah. It's so fun to see like the cats like, I wanna play food, where's food? Or where's dad? It's so fun. I love those videos. Yeah.
Yes, I do
But
too.
it's yeah.
If I get a kitten, which I mean I will at some point in my life, I'll
Yeah.
probably start as soon because I'm
Yeah.
able to walk them. One of them likes it more than the other one, but
Like walk outside
mhm,
with them?
I put them on a leash
Wow. Yeah.
and harness. Yeah.
Wow.
Hmm.
That's nice. And the other question now would be, if you could choose any superpower to have, what superpower would you choose to have, and what would be the first thing you would do with that?
I want mind reading abilities. I like you, I get a lot of anxiety, and I think if I could read minds, I know it's so invasive, but it would be so nice to know what I'm making up and what I'm right about, because I'm pretty intuitive. It's very frustrating when I interact with someone and I go and I tell my spouse, be like, I had this weird interaction today. Here's what happened. Here were the vibes I got. And then we'll talk and be like, it's all in my head. Everything's fine. But then later, sure enough, I was right. For example, I had a really weird interaction with one of our landlords. He just seemed off from his usual self, and I
Mm-hmm.
was like, "Oh, maybe he's just having a bad day." No, he was selling our building out from under us, and just didn't have the courage to tell me that day. But I have a lot
Wow.
of moments like that in my life, and it would just be nice if I didn't have to think of, like, if I just knew before the reveal. You know what I mean?
You didn't have to do all this detective work to
Yes.
figure out what's going on, right?
Just tell me
Yeah.
what's going on, my dude. I
Because figuring out can be very stressful, right? If
Yes.
you could just people, it would be easier if people would just tell you, but yeah, I can imagine like trying to figure out stuff, and because of anxiety, it happens to be a lot. Someone says something or
Yep.
something happens, like, what did that mean?
And then
Maybe they
overthink
think that,
it.
or maybe think that.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah,
I
I don't
do
know.
Go ahead.
I think my superpower would be the not overthinking,
Yeah.
like the yeah, that would be probably like not think about this stuff, because it's the stoicism is a lot about this, right? To let go of the things you don't control. So that's why I I study stoicism, like, to stop thinking about this.
Right.
But yeah, mind reading.
With
Yeah.
the caveat that I have the ability to put it on pause or turn it off when I don't wanna use
Oh
it.
yeah.
You don't want
Yeah,
all
of
the voices
course.
all the time.
Oh yeah. It wouldn't be good at all. You probably get overwhelmed. Yes. Our final question
Oh,
here
okay.
is: do you remember the last time you felt really happy, just grateful for being here and being, I mean, the last question I have prepared, I mean, I'm going to ask you, like, for your context, for last messages you want to give to people. Like, the last question in this rapid fire, like, fun questions is, if you remember the last time you felt really happy and grateful for being here and being alive. And if you do, if you can share what is that you were doing and where you were, or
Mhm.
anything like this.
Yeah, so I have a little bit of history of homelessness and housing instability. And it's so simple, but the happiest I am, and this happens repeatedly, but I every moment or every time I usually pause and just practice gratitude is when me, my spouse, and my two cats, we're all in the bed that we own at the same time, just winding down for the evening. It took us a long time to get to a space where that felt like something we could do, as opposed to we need to be working up until we're falling asleep. And I don't just mean that in tabletop space. We were both graduate students, so
Mm-hmm.
like I when I was in graduate school, I was working one full-time job as well as two part-time jobs in addition to graduate school, and he
Wow.
was working a full-time job and a part-time job. So having the ability now to look back and be like, yes, we have student loan debt, but now we have two cats, and, you know, things aren't where we wish they were. Like, we do wish we lived in a little bit of a nicer place. We're still in a one bedroom apartment, so it's very small. But, you know, it's so nice that we are not necessarily racing around. We have quiet moments, and I just get so thankful when I reflect on where we were, um, and the fact that
Yeah.
we can relax.
Yeah. I think one thing that I always say, repeat to my kids sometimes, is because we're always wanting more, right? Oh, we
Yes.
got this, now we want something else. We want a better house. We want, more RPG books. I
Right.
had so many. I always want more, but I always try to remember him. That's Try to remember how much you wanted to be where you are now.
Yes.
Right? Remember a few years ago, how you wanted everything you have now. You wanted it so bad, just a few years ago, few months ago, and now that's not enough,
Yeah.
right?
And
But it is enough. Like it's always enough. We you have to figure out this and like remember being grateful. You said to have a practice of gratitude.
mhm.
Do you have a practice? Do you do this with some regularity, or you just got used to when you are able to stop and just think about this stuff?
I wish it was something I did with intention, but it really isn't. It's more so I'm laying there about to fall asleep and I feel the weight of
Mm-hmm.
everybody. And I think about, I mean, it happens in the span of a couple minutes, right? Where I think about how we worked so hard to get here because we've been wanting to move to St. Louis for 5 years, and it took us 5 years to get everything lined up from a job standpoint, from a graduating standpoint, because it was going to be easier to see family and play tabletop RPG, like do everything we wanted to do was going to be so much easier once we moved to St. Louis, and it has been. We have no regrets about leaving, and like you said, there's still stuff we would want to make this a little bit
Yeah.
better, but right, it's not perfect, but it's good enough. It's nowhere is
Yeah.
ever going to be perfect, and it's
Yeah.
it's just
That's
it's nice to
we,
think about how far we've come.
yeah. Yeah. We can't wait for things to be perfect
Right.
to live and be happy, right? Because it's very easy for us. No, I will do this now. I remember we were figuring out how when we're gonna have kids here as a couple. Like, oh, when we have this and that, then we'll have because when I have money enough and I have a house, then I'll try to do this or that.
Right.
We're always postponing happiness for something that may not even come, right? So remember that we have to live and enjoy what we have right now, even though we want more. Try to live in the moment and enjoy what we have right now. It's I love
It's so
this
valuable.
this idea that happiness is once fulfilled, like math. Like we talk about math in the beginning, we're getting at the end. We're gonna talk about math right now. So imagine happiness is like just a calculation. So you have what you want, what you have, and what you want, like in the above, like a fraction. What you have on above and what you want on below. So the less you have what you want, the less happy you are, right? Uh, but maybe the good strategy is not having more stuff,
Yeah.
just wanting less,
Yes.
right?
Exactly.
It's something that I try to internalize
It's hard.
myself and
I mean,
teach.
we live
Yeah,
in a
it's
world
hard.
where people are constantly telling you need more,
Yeah.
or you.
Well, the whole system we live by, like we live in capitalism.
Yeah.
The whole system is based on that. They have to sell more and more things, and we have to. They have to trick us in believing that we need more and more
Right.
things. We need a better car. We need a better phone. I always make this joke that every year all the best cell phones release a new cell phone. But the printers are the same sucky printers for 20 years.
Yes.
Make a good printer. Stop making phones. Make a printer that works. We already have phones that work. We don't need iPhone 20
No.
something. We need a printer that won't, screw your paper or gets, it won't print anymore. That's
It's
what we
so
need. We don't need
funny
more phones.
you say that because I bought my first printer last year and I dealt with so many paper jams. It's
Yes.
like,
Yes.
what is this?
They have been doing this for I don't know how many years.
Exactly.
And it's the same problems. Stop making phones. Make printers. That's all I ask. Cassie, thank you so much for coming here and sharing your wisdom, sharing your passion, sharing your ideas. I had a great time. I learned a lot. Where can the wonderful weirdos that listen to us find you and find your work?
Yeah. Before I dive into that, this was so much fun. Thank you so much for the invitation and the well thought out questions. I really appreciate it, and I've loved the conversation. I can be
Thank you.
found at CassiMothwin.com if you want just an overview of my projects, learn more about me, or if you want to read my blog. I post tabletop reviews over there, as well as some APs.
YouTube too, yeah.
Yeah, and on YouTube, and sometimes I live stream on Twitch. If you want to purchase my games, which you'll find a link on CassiMothwin.com, you can just go to www.mothwin.com. For folks in Brazil, there is a code in the deals section. For anybody from Brazil, you can get digital games 40% off that doesn't expire.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I know it's rough and the conversion isn't great. So that's how I try to do it. So don't use itch or drive-through RPG because it doesn't translate there.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I usually yell on X, formerly Twitter, a lot about whatever I'm hyperfixated on at the moment.
Yeah. Are you're on Facebook too and Instagram or no?
Yeah, I'm there. I'm just not as much around. Those are the places where I will update them. I'm just
you're insisting on Twitter.
Yeah.
I try to be there too, but
I
mean,
hate all of it.
What options do we have, right?
Yes.
I mean, all social media is terrible. To be honest, all of them are terrible.
They're all bad.
Yeah. Well. And Cassie, do you have any last messages for the wonderful readers out there who are still listening to us?
Please follow my project on BackerKit. I'm sure there'll be a link in the description. It launches in September. The more followers I get before it launches, the better. So even if you don't plan on backing it, just following it for the number going
follow
up.
and share.
Yeah, I appreciate
share around.
it so much. I truly am an independent artist. So I really appreciate any help.
Yeah. Any help. Even if you don't want to buy it, you can share it, you can like it, because it helps reach more people. If people out there are wonderful, you want to help creators, you don't need to buy their stuff necessarily. Just share, like, comment something, even like an exclamation point. It helps bring more eyes to them, and those eyes will probably be someone that will like what they're making. So even if it's not for you, it may be someone else. Try to get more eyes into them, because we really need that. And internet used to be a place we could find a lot of new stuff, and now it's really a place that's you seem to be screaming in the void and just hearing your own echo back. So Cassie, it was great having you here. Thank you very much. Can you take us out saying the catchphrase of the show? Keep it weird, everybody.
Keep it weird, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Weird Games and Weirder People. If you'd like to keep up with the show, please subscribe to be notified when we release new episodes. If you'd like to support us, please leave a review or head on to ko-fi.com/WGNWP. See you next time, and remember, weird is the new wonderful.